What's going on, everyone? It's LFC Transfer Room here, and the run-up to the busiest time in LFC Transfer Room is fast upon us. Before we know it, in 3 or 4 days' time, 30 days of September, April, June, 4 days' time, the January transfer window opens, and we are going to be streaming every day, talking about all the links and stuff like that. And we've got a big transfer window coming up. We've lost a few players. There's quite a lot of long-term injuries. A couple of youngsters that are coming through. But what does a title-winning transfer window look like? And that's what we're going to talk about today. We've been linked to a few players, and I've got Race here. I've got Dan with me. We're going to break it down. We're going to tell you what we think, and we're going to build, with yourselves in chat, a title-winning transfer window for Liverpool Football Club. Race, still saying Merry Christmas feels like it's gone. It's too early to say Happy New Year, so I'm just going to say Happy Wednesday. How are you, sir?
Good, yeah. Happy Wednesday. Post Boxing Day too, of course. I know not as celebrated as much here, but Boxing Day was celebrated in this apartment here.
Big leftover sandwich. That's the Boxing Day tradition here. With all the meats and everything that you got left over. Yourself, Dan, happy Wednesday to you. How are you doing, sir?
Oh, doing just fine. I just got back from my folks' home yesterday morning, so doing good. Enjoyed that game yesterday for what it was. Can never go wrong with a 2-0 win against Burnley. Just enjoying the break, and then we all go back to work after New Year's, so that's gonna be fun.
And Jen straight away jumping in with the super sticker. Thank you very much for supporting the stream. We will make sure that this money makes its way to John W. Henry so that he can, go, I will give you £50 million and a penny for Ignacio. I think it's £52 million his release clause.
Listen, I already told Jen that he's only buying one. We're getting one red sock, maybe 2 red socks now. We're gonna get 2 red socks in January. That's gonna be our gift. Thank you, Jen, for our 2 red socks.
Now we're going to start off. There's a big gaping hole in Liverpool's squad at the moment, and I don't. You can't blame anyone. What club has 3 left backs? So we've lost Robbo, we've lost Costas, both with shoulder injuries, which is good because they can keep the fitness up to a certain level. Bad because obviously they take a long time to heal shoulder injuries. Joe Gomez did a great job again the other day. I think he did a great job against Arsenal as well after he had a dodgy 10 minutes and then he really sort of stepped into the game against Saka. Race, do you think they're going to be signing a left back? Do you think we need a left back? Robertson maybe back late January. Could that be too late? What do you think?
I think I don't think it'd be necessary to sign a left back given I know Costas' injury is more long term, but Robertson, will be back in the near future, we hope. And, it's kind of a position where I know even our center back depth is being tested a little bit, but we at least do have, Gomez, who is capable in that position to fill in for just a little bit. I know we have, it's going to be a busy period, coming up, but, it'd be kind of a panic buy for me. Because then, once you get, Robertson and Costas, what's kind of a third left back doing on your team? It's kind of a wasted spot, wasted position, especially, those coveted, for the international sign. I forget what they're called, but, foreign spots given up. So it wouldn't be a big position of need for me. And, it is a left back spot and it's, not the most premium position, even though we know it's Robertson in that position, but it's not too big of a need. There's more concerns that I would have, more signings that I would make in other spots. I think we can get by, without having a proper left back for a little bit here. I mean, that's what you have, your depth for. That's what you have your other players for. If you want to throw in, one of the younger players in for a game or two, get some running, that's an opportunity for them. I know we are in, of course, a title race and all of that, but I would definitely save some funds for other positions.
What do you think, Dan? Do you take the risk? Left backs kind of a key defensive position for us when we play Trent on an inverted right back sort of central midfield. You kind of need a strong left back there. So I think that's why the Ignacio talks have happened. But obviously you've got Robinson, who's a good up and coming left back from Fulham that's been linked with us. What are your thoughts when it comes to that sort of signing a left back position? Are you with Race? Give a youngster a bit. Hope Robbo comes back quicker.
I think it just comes down to how fast Robbo's going to be back. I think you said they're reporting it's like late January. I actually think he might be back a little bit earlier than we expect. I think by the time Salah may be leaving for AFCON, he may be back in. If Robertson is out much longer than we think, I think signing Anthony Robinson is not a bad shout because one, Costas is probably going to be out for up until May, so he's practically gone for the end of the year. And if you need a left back that can play, that you can plug in for 10 games, so forth before Robinson gets back, especially with the FA Cup that are coming up, and you don't think Chambers and Scanlon are ready. I think Anthony Robinson would be a very smart purchase, mostly because it allows you to therefore say to Costas or even Robbo, we can sell you on next year if we get an offer for you, especially Costas. Robinson himself, because he's still a top-level left back, given the situation. But considering how we've played with a left back this year, with Robinson, with Costas, it probably rules out Gonzalo Ignacio, mostly because Ignacio, again, plays as left center back, not really a left back or a left in a 3, pretty much plays left of a 2. And right now, except for the fact that Joel Matip's injured, I think the long-term replacement they're probably going to put there is Juro Kwanzaa, who has been playing with Van Dijk, and they've been managing Konate's minutes. It really just comes down to when does Robinson come back and what do they want to do with Joe Gomez? Because I think there may be a thing where actually it's not a left back you want to buy, it's a right back. And you put a right back there, you put Trent in the midfield, and Gomez becomes either your second center back or your second left back. So I think the thing is, going to the January window, there's a lot of options we can do. Anthony Robinson is very plug and place for Robinson and Costas being injured, but we could choose to do anything. Heck, we could choose to buy a winger if we really want to.
I think it becomes a tricky one for me because when you think about it, like Joe Gomez for me is that versatile player. He can play right back, he can play centre back, and he can play left back. He's the backup for Virgil van Dijk predominantly. When Virg didn't play as left centre back, Gomez came in, but there's enough skill within Gomez to move him around that he gets enough minutes and he's not going to be all upside down about it. You're right when it comes to Gonzalo Ignacio. He's never played left back. And everyone says we'll play a left centre back and stuff like that. Well, we've never played a left centre back so far. So Robinson from Fulham makes more sense to me as if you're going to sign somebody. But then there is players in the academy like Scanlon, who's got a really good reputation, who you may give a couple of games to. And I mean, I'll come to you with this Race, and also, in the chat, you've got £52 million to buy Ignacio. Does he even play if you signed him? Because he can't play left back. He might be left-footed, but he can't play left back. So would you spend £52 million on a player that gets 25% of games? It kind of doesn't make sense to me. What do you think?
I think there'd still be some minutes to be thrown around, not necessarily in the left back spot, but just given the center back rotation. I know, of course, him being a left-sided center back, I don't think it'd be much of an issue going to the right side or being a partner with Van Dijk. I know it's not the perfect thing, but I would certainly trust Klopp and the team to have him in the right position and get him firing. The Matip injury certainly throws has changed how we view this window of. I think we all kind of wanted a center back to begin with, but now we really kind of want someone in there. And I still think, because look, at the beginning of the season, our depth was tested like in the second or third game. We started having injuries. Of course, Van Dijk had the suspension. Like, you never can forecast, when you're going to need someone to come in and just the minutes to become available. So I think I wouldn't have any reservation with spending the money on Ignacio. It's still, I think, a good deal, with the release clause there. He, it just went up a little bit from the summer. I think I think it would still be some good business to bring in some depth in the center back department. Because I just think that you never know what can happen with players, and I think it's always wise to, if you can, add depth to position, especially in the center back position. I think you should do it.
£52 million for 25% of games, though, or would you go down a level?
I think, I don't know. You throw that number at me, I guess.
Well, that's his release clause, isn't it? It's £52 million.
I'm
Van Dijk is starting, so it is Van Dijk and Canate. After that Arsenal performance, for me, showed that he's actually top tier. Kwanzaa's showing great progression. So you either have a mass reduction or you share the minutes. So maybe 33% of games, £52 million for 33% of games, if you spread it evenly, which then stifles the other two development. So that's why I said 25%.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. It's just, we always see these other teams, spend money on players that seemingly don't get a lot of minutes. And, it's just, the price tag just doesn't really bother me as much anymore. You just bring in talented players whenever you can. And, hopefully it just seems like it always opens up somewhere where a player, you think is not going to get a lot of minutes, and then all of a sudden is. I mean, I thought with Gakpo coming in last year, I didn't think how much minutes he was going to get, but then, he was starting every game for us pretty much down the stretch. So, I mean, it's a good problem to have. I mean, to have that many center backs. I know of course, you mentioned the development part of it, but I just think it's just not a bad option to have.
No, and I do think you're right. We're not going to see Matip again for the rest of the season, Dan, are we? So with no Matip, and there's a chance we'll never see Matip again. However, Klopp does like to look after players that are injured and make sure that they get them re-signed and stuff like that. Did it to Chamberlain, did it to a couple of LFC players that were injured. Do you think a centre-back is where you would put your money, or is there another position where you would be investing, Dan?
Well, I think the fact that Ignacio's 52 million is just, he's not coming to us. I just don't see it happening. I don't know why they would do that unless someone forgot to take their meds over the transfer committee there. It's not to say Ignacio isn't a good player, could improve us, but you're talking about someone that, and I know we already talked about it, that only plays left center back, doesn't play left back. If we're going to buy a defender, it's going to be someone who can do left back or left center back. I think someone already mentioned Hincapié, someone that can do both, but could be a more defensive left back. So essentially a Joe Gomez-like player, someone that can do both fullback and center back coverage. This is the problem with talking about getting a defender. Right now, it wouldn't make sense because we have forfeit center backs, but then, we know that, Konate can pull a hamstring, Gomez can get a long-term injury here and there. So in reality, that 4 can become 2 and that 2 can become 1 very quickly. I think it would be smart if you can get a Hincapié to go and get one now, mostly because if it's someone you were already going to get in the summer or plan to get next summer, that's who you go get, which I think is what they were going to do, is going to buy a defender next summer. I think, but however, whoever we buy, if it is a defender, again, let's just say Hincapié for that reason, you're talking about, again, spending, I don't know what his clause is at Bayer Leverkusen right now, but I think it was 40 to 50, around the same as Ignacio. I just don't see that happening, which is why I think Robertson makes the most sense, because you're buying essentially a left back for less than 20 million quid, probably up to 20 million quid. And they can start, and they've played so Jimmy, you mentioned he doesn't have great delivery. You're just buying someone to essentially get you through that period to bring in Robertson back. I don't think you want to risk money on a center back unless you're getting someone that you're already going to get in the summer and that can play more than one position, because otherwise you're just spending money for them to sit on the bench for 4 months. I will say, however, who we could buy, and I think would be a smart buy, would be buying a forward, buying a a Bakayoko or someone that
we'll come to that. Daniel,
I know,
stop getting excited.
I know, but I think that's where it is right now, because we know we have players coming back. Everyone right now is coming back from injury. The only person that's on a long-term injury is Joel Matip. Everyone is mostly back. Matip and Tsimikas. So we have cover there kind of for now that we can kind of figure it out for the next couple games. But I think where you go next, if you don't go defender, is you go forward. You go forward. I don't think you go midfield. I think the Andre Trindade train has left the station, so to speak. But that's just where I think they will go, and probably where they should go.
Well, we are going to move into that sort of next part of the conversation, which is if you were part of LFC's transfer committee, not LFC transfer room, and Dan's system. Just change that. Sure, we'll be back in no time race. There we go. Straight away.
Sorry, my camera has issues. I need to get it fixed. I'm trying to get a new one in.
You've let yourself down, not us. No, so if you're part of LFC transfer committee, coming into January, you've got to win the title. Obviously, you've got these considerations in your head at this moment in time. So these are some of the considerations that I would put out there. And please, in the chat, tell me where you would go. Tell me what your focus would be and everything like that. You've got a gap at left back. You know Robertson's on his way back, but you don't know if he's going to be back properly and how strong back he's going to be or anything like that. And you're going for the title. You have a brand new central midfield, but you've got a lot of youngsters in that central midfield. So you know there's going to be some peaks of performance. You know there's going to be some drops. You also know Thiago's probably still going to stay injured. So you're not going to get back that level of experience that you probably need to drive yourself through to a title. Then you've got the front, and there's a bit of balancing issues that need to happen at that front side of things. You know, Salah and Nunes, when they work as a centre forward right wing, tend to stamp all over each other's territory. Nunes on the left wing's good, but then you need a more intellectual forward to come forward. But you've also got Diego Jota coming back, and Jota did exactly what Jota does. He came off the bench, banged it in the back of the net. Bish bash bosh. If we'd have had him against Arsenal and Man U, I'm pretty confident we'd have won both those games, because he doesn't do anything in the game, just scores goals. That's absolutely fine. That's exactly what we needed. So if you were part of this transfer committee and you were saying to Jurgen Klopp, this is what we need, this is where I think we should invest our money, where would you go? So please put it in the chat. If you are new here, please like and subscribe to the channel. We do quite a lot of transfer related stuff. But if you were part of that committee, where would you be advising Klopp to put his money? So put it in the chat. We'll bring it up on screen and react to it as well. But Race, giving you a little bit of time to think whilst I introduce the whole premise of you're now part of the transfer committee. I'm Jurgen Klopp. Where am I spending my money?
Well, just to circle back to the point on the left back, with Robertson, his injury, you know, it being a shoulder injury, I'm not too concerned about him coming back and maybe not being as effective. You know, I'm sure he's still got his legs under him and still, you know, hopefully training. Of course, there's a match fitness to all this, but I don't have too much concern about once he gets back into things, he'll be kind of firing. So left back, like I said before, not really much of a position of need or you know, of urgency to buy right now. I would prioritize other things such as like the defense is kind of where I'm leaning here. I just think you know, bringing in, you know, of course we talk about Andre coming in as a number 6, you know, bringing in another new midfielder into our team where we're already revamping our midfield this season. I'm sure we're still kind of working out, you know, kind of what our best 3 is. And, you know, of course, McAllister's out right now and we're just kind of still, I feel, getting things in motion there. So bringing in another midfielder, I think, you know, would just be another challenge to do. And, you know, wouldn't doubt that they could figure it out, but I think there would be, you know, more adjustments to be made there. But so I guess like I said, I would lean towards more center back if you would, if you're like looking to buy just one player like we have in the past, just kind of buying one
Hincapié makes sense because you've got 2 positions covered.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to spend, let's say you're going to spend £50 million to have 2 positions covered, would make sense to me more than it would an Ignacio. If you can't get that dual role defender, do you just not spend the money? Do you just roll the dice and wait until the summer?
That's good. It's a good question. I think you can. I think you can still spend the money, I'd say. I know we talk a lot about how tight we are with our budget and spending and whatnot. I would still spend the money, because I don't think it's a bad idea to bring in another player. Just simply adding to your your roster, putting aside the fee. I think it'd be wise to add still.
Who knew says we've got to sell before we buy. I'm pretty certain we've got 1 space left, and you could drop Matip because he's not going to. So you could take Matip out of the squad because he's not going to play for the rest of the year. There's no chance that he's coming back. So you potentially have 2 spaces there. Who knew 22? Dan, transfer committee. I'm Jurgen Klopp. Where am I spending my money? Where do you see the gap?
Well, I think this is the problem when you start getting really good really quickly, is the fact that it becomes much harder to fill gaps. Like, the quality of player that you're buying has to be at a certain level, or potentially at a certain level, to essentially justify the expenditure, which just makes it really difficult to buy as a top team, because you have to be very tactical in how you do it. You have to have long-term strategy, but also be tactical as well. That's JMU's. I'm actually watching the games right now. For this winter transfer window, I would go to Jurgen and I would say, all right, Simicast is out. Robinson, we don't know when he's going to be back. What do you think about Anthony Robertson for coming in cheap, 26, like Minamino was, and we just see how it works. Give him in the rotation. That gives Chambers and Scanlon, some time to develop, because they look less ahead in their development as Jordan Kwanzaa does. And, we can just go from there. It's a low, like, it'll be the best move of his career. He's never played here. He'll come in, work hard. He'll come in and he'll make us a better squad overall. And then I would say the Ben Doak experiment hasn't worked this year. Cade Gordon is coming back. We don't really have any good attacking wingers besides Diaz and Salah. And Harvey and Soboslai will probably play there when Salah's out. So we need someone to come in to help us fill out the attacking wing positions. They can play as an attacking winger, or even as a left or right mid in a 4-4-2. And that's when I would go in and say, how do you think about getting a young attacking winger to come in that we could trade in that position? And all that would be preference on the idea that in the summer is when you would sign your big defender. Because none of the defenders right now in the market, apart from Hincapié, which Leverkusen just don't look like they're going to sell, considering where they're at. No one looks like they're going to come. So these are the things where you could probably get them done. You could probably get them done at a reasonable cost. They would come in and make the squad better. And I think that gives us the best chance to not just compete for the title, but still continue on in the Europa League, the League Cup, and potentially the FA Cup, because we could win against Arsenal and be in a 4th round, 5th round, where you need to really rely on your squad.
So we've got a few: Ngape, Altnori, Bakayoko, Pape, Bosman contract, left centre back because Joe can't cover 3 positions. He'll break down. I'm going to throw a name at you both that I had in my head as would be a sensible stopgap, but also the potential to actually become a main player. Covers the right back, covers the left back, which is Kyle Walker-Peters. 26 years old, Southampton, left back, right back, 2 England caps, strong player, way too good for the Championship. Could come in, could do a job. I would argue he's as good as Costas. But he's able to cover multiple positions. Can't cover centre-back, though. I will say he can't cover centre-back. But he is able to sort of... He's played at midfield, so he can do that inverted role and stuff like that. Seems to have the logic in his head to be able to play that. And as a backup, so as a third we're talking about here, you're trying to convince a player to be third in the rank at right back, third in the rank at left back. I think you would most likely get him, and you would probably get him for about £16 million. Jen says no.
So I actually think that's not a bad shout, but my one thing for that is the fact that, do you think he's better than Bradley or Ramsey?
Yes.
Okay, so if you think he's better than those two, then I think that makes sense. But I would also say that there's probably going to be a situation where it's going to be Peters at right back and Trent in midfield. If you're buying Kyle Walker-Peters, you're essentially signing up to the Trent is now a midfielder experiment, which I do think they should commit to long term. But that's just my opinion on the whole matter, and I think that's actually what they're going to do. What I would say is that I think that would be a smart buy. Would Southampton actually sell him? They've sold so much of their team. And also, the only one reason I would take Robertson over Kyle Walker-Peters, even though Peters is homegrown, is that Robertson's 6 foot. And you could probably play him in a back three if you really had
Robinson.
to.
So I thought you were saying Robertson. I was like, Robertson's already there, Dan.
Robinson, not Robertson. Robinson. Okay, it's the Americanization of the name. That would be my only argument against it. But I don't think that's a bad shout. But I also think that someone else may just come and gobble him up and promise him first team minutes. But that's actually not a bad shout, though.
It's the only thing I could think. It was the only player I could think of that would solve us problems, but would also be happy not to be the front person and would say to Southampton, "You've got to let me go. How often are Liverpool going to come in for me?" And we were having this conversation in chat the other day, which is players who never got the chance at the top 6 and were probably good enough. You know, Endo's a really good example of that race, where he's been playing at relegation Stuttgart for X amount of years. It's taken a little bit of time to get used to Liverpool and stuff, but he's playing at the right level. He's playing at Liverpool level. He does not look out of place. I'm not saying he's a world beater, but he looks fair. He looks equitable, like to the team around him. So that was my thinking with someone like that. I'm trying to pick players who I think could step up, but not be stars. And sometimes it's not about signing the star, it's about signing the squad. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we're in a moment now where like we have been for the past few years, like as a title winning team, a title caliber team, it's easier to convince players to come in and join our team and say, hey, you might not be getting the frontline minutes here, but we're gonna need you at certain points this season. Like you said, players that haven't gotten the opportunity to play at a big club like us and win some trophies, you can have that opportunity and be that key player for us. So I don't think it's, obviously it's different circumstances for each player, but you can make an argument to a lot of players like, hey, you can convince them. It's always the club aspect that you have to, the one to get past the line there. But yeah, it's certainly, when you're in this, we're talking about building the title winning window here. And you can have these conversations about bringing in players that are good for their own clubs, but if they have that ambition to win trophies and to sacrifice their own role for the betterment of the team, you can bring in those players. And so specifically on the Kyle Walker-Peters thing, for me, it's just tough to, bring in a player and regardless of what, kind of the long-term plans are, buying a player that seems like kind of a short-term fix is I'm not too big of a fan of. It's something where, like I said, Robertson's going to be coming back, later this month. And once he's back, I'm sure he'll be in the starting 11, every most match days. And so then we're kind of buying this player, kind of like, when we bought Minamino. I mean, his role was like we bought him into, I'm not sure what exactly his role was. Of course, the next season was kind of when he, in the cup games and whatnot, he was playing. But in the end, we just didn't really have a role for him. It just kind of seemed like a pointless purchase. But it was so cheap that, it really didn't matter how much we spent. So that's how I would kind of view this move. It doesn't really make a lot of sense from a team building, unless, like Dan mentioned, we ultimately plan to move Trent into midfield and have a more traditional right back there. Then you could maybe talk me into it. But for now, in this moment, in this season of what our goals are this season, I think it would be a little much to add in a player for a short-term fix.
So to just, again, I kind of get the logic of a short-term fix and it not making sense and stuff like that. But we are talking about a player with over 150 Premier League appearances. English national, which is great for things. So potentially you could lose Costas and you could have him running as your reserve and stuff like that. And if someone was to say £16 million gets you a reserve for 5 games, but you win the title,
yeah.
Is that money? Is it worth a short-term fix? It's the whole Thiago argument, isn't it? It's like you sign Thiago, you're never going to get a resale value from. But is it worth it because it wins you the title? The whole Van Persie, Arsenal to Man United thing kind of makes sense, but it was short-term. So I don't know, but sometimes you've got to think short-term to build something for the long term.
Yeah, and that's why I said kind of case by case. And this is a case where you talk about a player who's, he's at a relegated club, wants to come up, play in some bigger games. Like the argument is definitely there, and that was definitely a good shout for you. So yeah.
So the other main thing everyone was talking about before, probably the last month, down, and probably in the last month, Endo has locked down that 6th position. And the question is, one, will he maintain his form? And then the other link is Paulinho from Fulham, just because it seems like, it's a really easy link to us and Fulham at the moment. But that was £64 million, wasn't it? The Bayern Munich move. £64 million, just a little more than the 52, but for someone that might play 50% of games as opposed to 30% of games as a left back, centre back would be. Again, I'm assuming no injuries here. Obviously, injuries can change the entire world. You've got 2 positions at centre back, you've got 1 position at DM. Would that make a more sensible investment? Because sometimes you need to make a statement signing in January to get everyone's mind at we're going to win the league. Would that be a statement signing?
It would be, but I don't know if buying Paulinho makes us 10% more likely to win the league. I think it makes us 1% or 2%, and you could argue that that's good enough. But I would also say Kyle Walker-Peters makes you just 1 or 2%, or a Robertson or a Bakayoko, because you're adding someone who is quality to a team that's going to make it better. Now, I'm not saying Paulinho is a bad player. I think João Paulinho is a very good player. But if you're going to spend £64 million on a DM who is 28, you kind of want the finished world-class version. And Paulinho is he's just not that. His stats don't reflect that. He doesn't pass the ball forward. He has not played well for Fulham the past couple of games. I'm not saying that you don't go out there and you maybe don't splash money on a number 6. But if you're going to spend that much money on a 6 who's going to come in and start after, say, 2 months, you want someone that is as close to the complete package as possible, especially at the age of 28 and for $65 million. Now, if you get someone that can do all of that, I think that maybe raises to about 5%, because it essentially allows you to have more flexibility with your players. Someone can play for the forward, McAllister for the forward, Jones for the forward, Trent can play for the forward, et cetera, so on and so forth. I just don't think any player like that's available in the market. The reason why João Paulinho is being linked so heavily is because he was available. Everyone's thinking he's still available. All the reports from Germany are Bayern still want him, but thinks he's expensive. It's just very much Liverpool midfield, linked to Joao Paulina.
Bayern played this game with Harry Kane, though, didn't they? Oh, we want him, but he's really expensive and ended up smashing over 100 million on.
Yeah, and listen, I mean, right now Harry Kane is being ridiculous for Bayern Munich, but they're not. But they're still behind the title race at the moment. So, I don't think they will, and I just don't think it really makes sense to spend that much money on a six. You're probably going to get 3 years out of. Like what you said for Kyle Walker-Peters, being a squad player for 4 or 5 years, that makes sense for 20 million. They can make you win the league. Robinson, again, that makes sense. Even a young player back Yoko, not even just value itself, but you could still get some. It's not a big loss. Ignacio and Ngape make a lot of sense because of their age, but Paulinho, it doesn't make sense. Like it just does not make sense to me, and I don't think they would do that.
Now we're going to move on to looking at some of the forward line. Obviously, you've mentioned Bakayoko a couple of times, Dan. Salah's going to AFCON. Chance he might miss about 7 games, which, I mean, it can make or break a title race. We've got one of the questions here, which is for the panel, which is who will replace Salah while at AFCON? Obviously, Harvey Elliott played there the other day with Gakpo at centre forward and Diaz at left wing. Not Diaz, Nunes at left wing. And that worked incredibly well against, completely forgot who we played, where we completely took them apart. Curtis Jones had a
West Ham
game. West Ham.
Yeah, it was West Ham to League Cup.
Now, Race, I kind of feel like our attack's a bit unbalanced at the moment. I think we're stamping on each other's toes, and it could just be a time and a duration thing in the game situations and the players learning where all the other players run. But there's people that are saying Diaz just seems way off it. He doesn't seem like that type of player. He doesn't seem Mane level, which I think is a bit thing. Mane was on 150 grand a week plus all the bonuses, and Diaz is on 50 grand a week, and you're expecting Diaz to be Mane. It's kind of a bit, he might get there, but Diaz doesn't seem like he's fully recovered from his long-term injury yet. He doesn't seem as confident. He's not taking players on. He always cuts back in. Can you see a logic for bringing in a speedy attacker? So, you've got Gakpo and you've got Jota, who are skillful attackers. Diaz is skilled. You've got raw chaos that is Nunes. Salah's not going to be there. Do we need a bit more pace in that front three?
I think the attack right now is just kind of in a rut, in bad form. I think I'm not sure necessarily buying a player is the right move. I mean, Diaz, I think he looked good earlier this season. He's had some good performances for Colombia, and so I know of course, his injury is, there's a lot of people want to talk about, but I don't know. I think there's just some confidence. It's just, I don't know. I feel like we have this every year. Sometimes the attack just isn't firing on all cylinders. Of course, we have the game against West Ham, but, other games, it's just like, it's just tough. I think, we're still trying to figure out, here we are with Nunez, kind of figure out what his position is. If he should be more central, more on the left. Of course, scored a great goal the other day, to break his long goal drought that he had. Gakpo's been a little inconsistent. He had a little injury, earlier this season. Salah's still, I think, he's still got his goals and assists. His numbers are still up there. I'm not sure that buying a player is the move. I think it's just got to be worked out. Just try some new things, and we're gonna see. With Salah gone, of course we all want him in there, but it's gonna be Harvey or Szoboszlai up there. I'll be intrigued to see Szoboszlai kind of more forward, to see him getting, up the field more, I think, in a more advanced position. Maybe if it's on the right or maybe on the left side, so he can cut inside on his right foot, would be interesting to me. But I think, of course, Jota coming back as well. I think, I'm not sure. I can't remember off the top of my head, if we were just kind of, running these guys into the ground a little bit, need a little break, specifically in Diaz's case, because with Jota injury, we've had to really had him be the main left wing option. I think maybe he just needs a little bit of a break, and that's where Jota comes in. You can get, there's just a lot of moving parts here. I think, we're still trying to figure out, Salah's on the right, but who's really, our main
option is in number 9, and then who's really on the main option on the left wing. If it's Diaz that we should be putting in there every game, or if we want to put Nunez out there or put Jota in, because I think we're not short on talent and goals up front. All these guys have shown that they can, on their best day are top level attackers. So I think it's just a matter of just working out the kinks and just trying to continue to work on getting the right combination in there.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think we'll probably see, and to answer Jamie, you said I think we'll see Nunez playing right wing. I know everyone's like, "Oh, your right wing has got to be left-footed and stuff like that," but I don't buy into that logic, because Nunez at his best when he attacks the right channel, shoots across with his right and shoots across goal. Now, if he shoots across goal and the goalkeeper pushes it out, and you've got a fit Diego Jota, that's a goal every time. Because for some reason, it always seems to go to Diego Jota. That's more a compliment to Jota than it is anything else. So, and also crossing across the box, stuff like that. For me, sometimes having the right footer on the right wing works brilliantly, especially seeing as you've got Trent not overlapping anymore, but inverting. Sometimes we just find ourselves just playing it around and around because you've not got the person with the right left foot to just whip it in or the right foot to just whip it in. What about you, Dan? You mentioned Bakayoko a couple of times. ZK Hammer's mentioned he'd like to see Elise come in. I think that's an interesting one. That's a right winger that can sort of come a little bit more central and play a little bit more sort of an attacking midfielder type role, which kind of potentially stamps on some of Trent's area and Soboslai's area. Do you think it's just about finding the right player for the right position, or do you want to bring in something a little bit different, something a little bit more speedy and dribbling? When you mentioned Bakayoko, that sort of direct drive at goal.
Well, I mean, the reason I mentioned Bakayoko is because he kind of looks like what Diaz was like 2 seasons ago when we brought him in, or so, not 2 seasons ago, last year. Yeah, the year before last. So I guess it would be 2 seasons ago. And he is someone that, we like. The player that I think has disappointed, or you just haven't seen that much, has been Doak. And I feel like if you want an option for that forward line, just to give something a little bit more different, like you mentioned, just something to stretch the play a bit more, I think Bakayoko would be a good option. I'm not going to be I don't want to be too harsh on Diaz because he just hasn't been able to maintain a level of form. That's not just because of the injury. That's because, obviously his family was kidnapped and, that kind of throws it out. And so he's essentially playing 3 weeks behind with that. I think his confidence I think he just hasn't been confident. I think the midfield behind him hasn't helped and Robinson's injury hasn't helped because he started to get a relationship with Robinson, then he gets injured, then he had to build a relationship with Tsimikas, now Tsimikas is injured. He plays his best with Curtis Jones, but then, Curtis Jones was suspended and then, was not played for a couple games as well because I think he had like a niggling injury as well. So I think with Diaz, it just really comes down to like stability. And it just reminds me a lot of like the 17-18 season when we had Mane, Firmino, and Salah for the first season, where it felt like Mane kind of got lost and they didn't know what to really do with him. And then Mane had to kind of slowly reinvent himself into like this all-around left forward, inside forward, left striker, essentially when they essentially moved from like a 4-3-3 to like a 4-4-2 diamond when Firmino became like a number 10. I think Diaz is just kind of caught a little bit in that transition right now in a team that is still trying to figure out like its best options. That's why the attack looks so clunky sometimes because they just don't have the relationships. They haven't played with each other that much. So you're not always going to get that silky smooth play. And sometimes it's brilliant because they're great players. And sometimes, it's a bit overplayed. I think the Burnley game is a good example of that, where it looked like, the attack was passing way too much to shoot a goal. When it's like, if you cut out 1 or 2 passes, you're probably getting like at least another goal. So I just think Bakayoko is kind of like the best balance for that. I was about to talk about Elise, but he just scored for Palace. I think Elise is a good player. I just don't think you can get him from Palace without spending like Jack Grealish levels of money, and you're not going to get like Salah level of output. And I don't think Liverpool are in a position to spend $100 million on a player to be essentially like Jack Grealish. Just back to goal, hold the ball, and move it up the field. So I just think it's the best. It's the best combination of opportunity and everything else. But that's if they sign someone, because I think someone mentioned like, will they even sign someone? I think this is good. I think there is an argument that Liverpool probably won't sign anyone depending on the injury situation. but that could happen. But I've also been surprised, like with Diaz, like I was expecting that to happen, but they did. So I think it's like I said before, we have options and we can essentially go in a number of different directions, and that's good. It means you're not wedded to anything in the market, and you don't really need, and you can't really be taken advantage of in that sense.
At least he has a £40 million release clause, if I'm not mistaken.
I thought that got removed or that got upgraded because he redid his contract in the summer.
It's also French, so I doubt it'll be Grealish money. I mean, it might be, but you never know, do you?
True.
I'm very much on the side of we will sign somebody because we always seem to sign somebody. And that could just be, again, for mentality of the team, because obviously we had quite a long list of injuries for a period of time. I think it makes sense to bring somebody in just to sort of give the team a lift. We're going for this title. It's a psychological thing more than it is anything else. I think we may be surprised by who we signed, because last January we signed Gakpo and everyone was going ballistic, saying, why have you signed Gakpo? Shocking idea. Why have you signed him? Blah, blah, blah. And then he's just was the perfect key to everything that we were trying to sort of pull together to have a run, and we nearly got top 4 because of it. And he was a brilliant player for us. Everyone just wanted a Henderson replacement, and it's just as everyone's focused on a left centre-back and a centre-back and a left-back at the moment, Klopp looked at that sort of role and went, do you know what, we need that false 9 centre-forward type person to come into midfield and make it all happen. Signed Gakpo and Bosch. Everything fell into place. So I do think we'll sign somebody. And that's not just because we're LFC transfer room, and I have to say that. That is genuinely, I think we will sign somebody. Dan just wants January off. Streams by saying we won't sign anyone. But please let us know in the chat. Do you think we'll sign someone? What percentage confidence do you have that Liverpool will sign someone in January? And we'll sort of finish on that level of thing. Ray, so what level of confidence have you got that Liverpool will sign somebody? Just put your garage on it, the ground floor of your house, all of your house, your car, your mustache.
Well, my apartment's not worth too much, so maybe I could. But I don't know. Just given the past couple windows and what we've shown in the January window, I'll give it it's tough. I don't know, 60%. I'm gonna sit on the fence a little bit. I think, and as we talked about here, there's multiple positions we could get. I just think because of the Matip injury, there could be a case to be made for a center back. But wherever it may be, I'll sit on 60 for now. I hate seeing all of the reports of it's gonna be a quiet window and whatnot. Well, that's kind of January every year for us, and then bam, we make some signings. So that's just how we've done our business. Maybe it's different because we saw in the summer we were a little more upfront with our business, a little more noisy, but we've shown in January that we're willing to make a purchase, especially in a year where we have big goals and we're in a title race.
Dan, level of confidence.
I'm a pure fence sitting. I think it's 50% we sign someone, 50% we don't. I think like Grace mentioned, like usually every year it says it's going to be a quiet window, but we make a signing. But if we make a signing, it's really early. So I think we'll have an idea in like the next couple of days. Like we don't ever sign people late, except for that one year we had that center back injury crisis. But if we are going to sign someone, we'll probably know in the next couple of days, because I think Gakpo was announced. I think literally after we beat Villa 3-1, and that was on Boxing Day.
It's like a year ago today to the date, I feel.
Yeah, it's like almost a year ago today, so to speak. So, we'll probably hear more information shortly, but like many Liverpool transfers, apart from the Lavia one, which I have my own like theories and hypotheses and speculations about, it's usually pretty quiet and it's done behind closed doors, and we don't know about it until it's signed, and then we just go from there. But yeah, I'm about 50% because I feel like we would have heard more rumors before now, and that's why I'm like less convinced that it's going to happen. But I'm okay with any player they sign, even if it is Paulinho. You know, I mean, I'm not going to say like, no, how dare you sign a good midfield player? We don't need more of those. I at this point, I think the Jurgen Klopp and the transfer committee know enough. Even Schmatka, I think they know the leagues enough that they can, whoever they sign will probably be, you know, competitive and will help us and give us a good chance to win the league if we end up signing someone.
Well, there you have it. 60%, 50%, 60%, and I'm going to say 70%. Jamie uses 50%. I think we will sign someone in this January transfer window because we always do. I don't think it'll be a star player. I think it will be a squad player. My random guess of this stream was Kyle Walker-Peters because he can play left back and right back. And he's way better than Southampton. And I don't think Southampton are necessarily in the championship promotion race, so he may be looking to get out. I may be completely wrong with that. They may be slap bang in the middle of it. I don't think they're at the top, though, are they? He says, looking at the championship, they're third. Completely wrong. So they are in a the race, but this has been LFC Transfer Room. Thank you very much to Race and Dan for joining me to sort of have a preview into the January transfer window. As we build up, as things break, as things happen, we will obviously be going live throughout the entire January transfer window. So make sure that you like, make sure that you subscribe to the channel, and we will catch you on the next one. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Take care, and we'll catch you again soon.